featured artist is Doug Ridgway. He's got, I think, 33 years at the Fish and Game. Knows a lot about birds. Nobody knows everything, but he knows a lot more than I do, and I'm sure a lot more than most of us. So, without any further ado, I'd like Doug Ridgway, to get started.
Okay, well, Jonathan, thank you for inviting me. Okay, I'm going to just a brief review of some of the wildlife areas in California, some of the history behind them, and just kind of go by there. Like I said, if anywhere during the presentation you have questions, you either ask me or wait till we're finished. So now, can you see the whole thing, the whole screen?
Yes.
Okay.
Roll 'em.
Okay, so why is not working? Okay, so why is there a picture of Lake Merritt in this presentation? In 1870, Lake Merritt was established as the country's first wildlife area. Lake Merritt was a tidal marsh and was hunted. And yes, Samuel Merritt wanted to develop the area around it. And he felt that hunting would impact his ability to develop the property. So he got a state law passed prohibiting hunting there, thus making it the first refuge in the United States. The first federal refuge was Pelican Island, established by Theodore Roosevelt. And today, the Fish and Wildlife Service has a total of 38 refuges in California for approximately 440,000 acres. And here's a map showing all the refuges that they have. So most of them I've not been to, and I don't have any pictures of, and I don't have time to even look at it. But I'm going to cover a few of them. The California Department of Fish and Wildlife is responsible for approximately 1.1 million acres of fish and wildlife habitat, and it's managed through 749 different properties. And here's the map showing their locations. And another good source for a place to go photograph is Nature Conservancy. It's they go and they buy up areas and convert them into wildlife or habitat type areas, and most of them allow access to the public. Historically, the vast majority of the state and federal refuges are funded through hunting and fishing licenses. And there are approximately 1.5 million hunting license holders in the United States, and they spend $902 million a year in license fees. In California, $29 million is spent. And in contrast, the non-conceptive our users are paying $131,000 for lands passes. Land passes are required for entry on several wildlife areas, etc. Lands pass isn't needed if you have a hunting or fishing license. Here's a list of the California areas that require a lands pass. You look at some of them, like most notably is Gray Lodge, Woodbridge Ecological Reserve, which we'll be talking about later on tonight, Los Banos Wildlife Area, and so forth. And even some of the refuges, federal refuges, are starting to access or assess fees. Sacramento Refuge is one of them. And here's the cost: $6 a day, $12 for an annual pass. But if you have a federal duck stamp, you don't have to pay that. Or if you have a interagency parks pass, you don't have to pay it. So here's refuges I'm going to try to talk a little bit about today. Lower Klamath, Modoc, Sacramento, Nature Conservancy in Staten Island, and Consumers Reserve in Thornton, Beckwith Platform at San Joaquin River Hatchery, the Pelican Trail, and San Luis. I was going to try to cover Merced, but I just ran out of time and I didn't have enough good enough photos to do it. On the Klamath Basin, the state line literally runs through the middle of it. There's refuge, and it's got a really, really nice, extensive auto tour route that you can go, and a lot of hiking trails. And if you go down there during the spring and summer, you can find abundance of young of the year. And you can find some burrowing owls there and white pelicans. In the winter, it's really an interesting place. They have geese there all year round, and bald eagles and swans. And interesting, I don't know if anybody's ever done it, but in February, up in Klamath Falls, they have the Winter Wings Festival, and they usually have part of it's geared towards bird watchers, but they always have a segment geared towards photographers, and they have some really outstanding presenters, and they lead tours out on refuges, and something to look at. The Winter Wings Festival in Klamath Falls. Modoc is another one. Modoc is becoming one of my favorites. And it's just outside the town of Alturas, and it's got a nice auto route to it on it also. But it's a great place to watch sandhill cranes. And if you look at on the tan-colored map, the red boundary on the bottom, it's actually county roads, and you can see quite a bit of wildlife from those county roads. Sandhill cranes are about the right height to take eggs and young out of blackbirds' nests. So if you go there in the spring and summer, you can always find blackbirds harassing them. And it's a great place to photograph banded sandhill cranes also. These all were taken right off the county road. The one-legged ones. You had opportunity to see antelope and deer. And we are really blessed living in the Pacific Flyway, because you can see how all the waterfowl, how everything just funnels right into this one little narrow area. So it gives us a lot of opportunities. In the northern Sacramento Valley, you have the Sacramento Wildlife Refuge, you got Delavan, Colusa, Gray Lodge, all fairly close to each other, and they all allow the public to go in there. And the Sacramento is the northernmost. It has 2 photo blinds, and it has an abundance of waterfowl during the fall and the winter. And like I said, they have 2 photo blinds. These blinds were actually provided by the North American Nature Photography Association. They provide the funding for them. And in order to use the blinds, you have to make reservations through the Sacramento National Wildlife Refuge's office. And Colusa is another amazing place. You can see on the map on on the top there where the auto tour route is. It's a little bigger picture. Right where the kind of orange line goes up to an observation deck, right there, there's a viewing platform. And Mike Peters, who used to be the manager there, is very much a photographer. So he set that viewing platform up. So in the afternoon, you got the sun to your back. And it really makes it nice for photographing the birds. He put sand in front of the viewing platform for the birds to feed on. And then he had some logs and stuff in there to attract them. And you can see how this is the platform, and you can see how the sun's shining to the back, and so you get some really good lighting. And yeah, these sprig were only about 30 feet from the deck, and they didn't care. They're just soaking up the afternoon sun. Same thing with snow goose. And on the auto tour routes, for the most part, the birds are so used to people that you don't really flush them. Of course, you can't get out of your car, and I found that cars make great blinds. But found it interesting. This little Ross's goose had a band on it. And you can see banded mallards up there too. I think most of the banded mallards you find in there are actually raised in that area. And Calusa Refuge has its own blind. And again, you have to make reservations through the Sacramento National Wildlife Refuge office. Gray Lodge. Gray Lodge is about a little over 9,000 acres. It was first bought in the 50s, I believe it was, and it has expanded. There's kind of a map. It's just outside of Gridley, about halfway between Gridley and Live Oak. Excuse me. And they've got one of the nicest auto tour routes you can provide. Now, like I mentioned before, to go into Gray Lodge, you have to have a lands pass or hunting or fishing license. And the birds are so used to people there that, your car's not going to flush them. Okay, I'm going to drop down to Cosumnes River, Staten Island, with Woodbridge Ecological Reserves. And the Cosumnes River and Staten Island is a partnership between the Nature Conservancy and the Bureau of Land Management. And the Woodbridge Ecological Reserve is owned and operated by the Department of Fish and Game. As was put there expressly for the purpose of providing roosting habitat areas for the sandhill cranes. And this is kind of showing the Cosumnes River properties. They have a total of around 50,000 acres, which they, a lot of it is farmed, but it's all managed for waterfowl or wildlife. And during the fall, the two big attractions to Cosumnes Preserve and any of these are the sandhill cranes and the geese. You get a lot of sandhill cranes that come in and use that area, and a lot of geese. And some Canadians have actually become permanent residents there. They like it so much. And of course, you've got the herons and egrets and ibises in there also. And lots of waterfowl. There's areas there where they do nest, but the majority of them migrate in from the north. The Nature Conservancy, Staten Island. Staten Island is, back up here just a little bit, show you. Staten Island is that yellow sliver right in here. And there's a road that goes right down the middle of it. It stops about right here. And the viewing is along that road. And it's all farmed, and then after it's harvested, they flood it. They were growing a lot of corn there, and they found that one of the problems with the delta is subsistence, where the land has actually been sinking. The top of when I get down to Woodbridge, but this has sunk so much so there's areas now that they are planting into rice, so that they don't burn it off. They harvest the rice and they flood it out and let it decompose and start creating new soil. And you got a lot of Aleutian geese in there. I'm going to talk a little bit more about the Aleutian geese, but this is really a success story. As of their names, they breed on the Aleutian Islands, and then they fly straight across and come in around Humboldt, Eureka, and so forth. And what happens when Russians first came into Alaska, they released foxes on the Aleutian Islands with the idea that they're going to harvest them later on for their pelts. Well, the foxes really decimated the Aleutian population to where they were down to around 1,500 individuals back in the early 70s. And by getting rid of the foxes, and they did some, they cut back on certain areas on hunting for a while, and now their population is up around 150,000. So it's a really nice success story. And of course, there's habitats in there for egrets also along Staten Island. And you got the herons. And all these areas, the waterfowl or the wildlife is used to having people come in and looking at them and so forth. And so they're not really too frustrated by people. This crane here, I photographed it in October of 2021, and the summer before was when I was up at Modoc photographing those other cranes, and I'd photographed him up in Modoc, and I turned around and photographed him again when he came down to Staten Island. Woodbridge Ecological Preserve. Like I said, this is owned by Department of Fish and Game. They have two units. They have what they call the South Unit, which is this right here. That's open to the public, but you have to have a lands pass to get in. And you come in here, an hour before sunrise, and you say, how come everybody's here? Then about 15 minutes before sunrise, the sandhill cranes start coming in. And I've seen as many as 3,000 to 4,000 cranes come in the evening. And you'll have the whole place filled up with cars. People bring up picnic tables and everything else and set up to photograph the cranes. And if you really need to get a picture of a mockingbird, there's a mockingbird out there that just loves to pose for pictures. And what they do is sandhill cranes need water to roost, because unlike herons, they don't have a rear toe, and so they cannot perch in trees. And so they have to either roost on islands or in the water there, so that if something like a coyote tries to get them at night, they can hear them coming and they'll take off. And so the way the south unit is set up, there's several islands just right off the parking lot. And the birds will fly into there and spend the night. And I do docent tours for Fish and Game also. And what I tell the people is that, especially those that come from a long ways away, is, come for the evening fly-in, go get a hotel room, come back half an hour before sunrise, and when the first starts getting light, that the birds start jumping up and down and doing their dancing, and then they take off 2 or 3 at a time. This example of early morning takeoff. But you get some really nice sunset shots there too. And it's always fun to watch the cranes like to sing. They like to sing to each other. These are actually a group of males. And you can tell the difference between a male and female singing is that a male will stick his head straight up, where when a female sings, it's about a 45-degree angle. And you get herons, egrets in there, herons come in there too. And if you catch the light just right, it can really look nice. This little guy, I was in the parking lot one morning, just sitting there, waiting for the cranes to take off, and he comes in with this little Jerusalem cricket. He sits on that fence post, probably 30 feet away, and just sat there for 5 minutes, let me take pictures of him. And little kestrels are around there all the time. On the north side, what they call the north side unit, there's actually a viewing structure there. That's behind a locked gate, and you have to get reservations through the Department of Fish and Wildlife. It doesn't cost you anything for the reservation, but you do have to have your lands pass. And pre-COVID, it was restricted to 30 people. Since COVID, we've been doing it with 4 groups or 4 pods of no more than 4 people per pod in there. And that's worked out reasonably well. And this is if you want, and then if you, our tours are the first Saturday and first 3 Saturday Sundays of the month. Now, if you get 12 people together and want to go for a special tour in the middle of the week, have at least 10 people, and you can do it. What's nice is, especially towards the first part of the season, the cranes tend to come in earlier, and so the setting sun's to your back, and so when the cranes start coming in there, they just catch some really, really gorgeous light. This one is interesting. This is actually taken during the middle of the day, but that was a real strong north wind blowing, and the crane that's up in the air was actually hovering there, and the wind itself is holding it up. Okay, San Luis National Wildlife Refuge. I've been down there quite a bit, especially to photograph the Thule elk. But it's got an abundance of waterfowl too. I thought this was interesting because that the snipe lined up with the ducks thinking he is one. And you can, sprig is my, sprig or the pale-tail duck is my favorite favorite duck. I just love to photograph them flying. This one's actually on their website, the San Luis Refuge's website. And they got California quail all over the place there. And of course, the Thule elk. I'm going to assume that, well, right, most everybody's been down there to look at them. They got 680 acres fenced in. And this is basically, it's a breeding herd of elk. And here a couple of years ago, I didn't put any pictures in, but I went down there with them, and they were in helicopters. They had too many. The 608 acres can hold around 40 to 50 animals comfortably, and they were over 100. And so they brought a helicopter in to do a capture, and it was really interesting to watch because the guy would lean out of the helicopter and shoot a net over the top of the Thule elk, and then they'd land the helicopter, get out, and they'd hog tie it like a cow, then pick it up and carry it off and get it checked and then put into a pen. And then taken, that time, part of them were taken down around Bishop and released, and other down at Carrizo Plains and released. And I was down there in one August, and I found this this fawn, late season fawn. And everybody was all, when I showed them the pictures, everybody was all excited about it because it was too late in the season for a fawn. And it's always nice to see those big elk. And for the final stop, we're going to go down to San Joaquin River National Wildlife Refuge. Lately, I volunteer down there, and this is where I spend a lot of my time these days. I'll go back to this map, but the refuge is basically bisected by 132. On the northern part, I don't think it's my cursor, up in here is the Beckwith Viewed platform. And then down here is the main refuge where they get a walking tour, a hiking tour. But on the Beckwith platform, they plant 200 acres of corn there. It's a cooperative thing they have with the local farmers. They plant 200 acres of corn, and they don't harvest it. They just mow it down for the geese to come in and feed. And this is established as a wintering place for the Aleutian Canada goose. And this is part of what has made it so successful. And when the geese come in there, they come in there by the thousands. And first part of the season, they get more dark geese, and then as the season progresses, start getting more and more white geese that come in, to the point where in December, you'll have probably 5 to 1 white geese or dark geese, or white geese to dark geese. And lucky to get a band. So this year, the refuge manager asked me to make a video on the goose banding that they do there. And in early October, or excuse me, late October, early November, they use cannon nets to try to catch these geese, and then they put these leg bands on them and neck collar. And they put the neck collars on them so that they can identify them with binoculars to kind of track the populations. So I put together about a 6-minute video here I want to show you. And if you don't hear sound, please let me know. So that was a little video I made. My first attempt at making a video like this, and it was really a learning experience for me. But like I said, in the December, January, when the geese start coming in there, there'll be thousands of them. I think this year we counted close to 60,000 geese come into this one field. And of course, when you get a lot of geese in there, you get bald eagles to show up too. And sage phoebe is a wintering bird there. I was lucky one afternoon to find this coyote trying to make a sneak on these sandhill cranes. And the sandhill cranes stared him down, and you can see him kind of looking off to one side and said, well, maybe I shouldn't. And he actually went out there and kind of laid down and took off. Okay, now on the southern part of the property of the red, they have what they call a Pelican Trail. It's a total of about 4 miles, 3.8 miles. And main area I'm going to talk about is up on what they call the river loop up on top. And this is the marshy area that it goes through. And you can see sandhill cranes taking off in there. And there's there's lots of valley quail all over the place there. But if you go up on the river loop, there's an area there where you can look across the San Joaquin River, and there's a heron rookery there. And it has herons, egrets, and cormorants. Here's one of the parents coming in to bring dinner. Yeah, there's them looking up. And here's some of the egrets in the rookery. 2 young blue herons. The blue herons nest first, and about the time that the young ones leave the nest and the egrets are taking care of their own young. There's feeding time. And that's all I got.
Thank you. That is truly the end there.
That is the end, yes.
Doug, what is your source for getting the maps and locations of these wildlife refuges?
Well, I use Google Earth for a lot of it. And then I used, that's
if you know the names of them. Say you don't know the names and you want to know the ones in the area, like Alturas.
Google. Just wildlife areas in, you name the, in California, come up with a list of them. Let's go from there. But,
Doug, what kind of lens, what type of lenses are you primarily using for shooting the birds?
well, right now I'm using the Canon 100 to 500 RF lens. But on some of them, I've also was using the 100 to 400, and there's a couple of 600 millimeter that I had demoed.
Doug, you talked about the birds dancing. Is that a mating ritual, or what are they doing?
It's more of a socialization thing. Do it for several reasons. One, for mating to courtship. But this time of year, they do it just kind of, hey, how are you? Or don't get too close to me. Because even though they're together, they got their little space. And if one crane tries to, invade their space, they'll say, oh, wake up. Yeah. But, yeah, on the nesting grounds, the cranes are very solitary. It's just the parents and the young ones. But when you get down the winter grounds, they all tend to congregate. When you see the big groups of herons, cranes flying out, it's usually just a series of small family units that are flying together. So,
How long do they mate for?
pardon?
How long do they partner up, mate for?
Well, on the average, they won't start breeding until they're about at least 5 years old, and they can mate for life. And in the wild, 30, they can be 30 years old in the wild. I think longest lived one in captivity was 75 years.
Oh, quite a ways.
Yeah.
Now, our cranes in Merced and San Luis, where are they coming down from?
Well, because the greater sandhill cranes, they breed in Modoc or northeastern California, eastern Oregon, and southeastern Washington. The lessers come down from the Arctic and Alaska.
Okay, yeah, that's what we have mostly at Merced, I think, is the lesser sandhill cranes.
Right.
Yeah.
In most of these wildlife refuge, what is the seasons that the birds are there?
Well, they start coming in around October. I know the cranes are here, and we start our crane tours the first weekend in October, and there's enough cranes here to make it worth our while. As far as the waterfowl goes, it's really dependent on weather. You know, if you have a real early cold freeze up north, it's going to drive the birds down into here. If it's nice and warm and sunny up there, it's going to take them longer to get down. They'll eventually come down because they'll run out of food. So.
Doug, how long does the banding process take? 1 day, 2 days?
Like I said, the goal is to band 400 birds, and they start at the end of October, early November, when we start getting the birds in there. And if they can get them in 2 or 3 days, that's fine. This year, because of some scheduling conflicts and so forth, we got 150 birds the first day, and we didn't get anything else for the rest of the season. And
Wow.
So
What's your favorite refuge?
that's like saying, who's your favorite child? I'm probably, I've always liked Gray Lodge, but I haven't been up there for years. But Calusa is a really nice one too. Has anybody been to Calusa?
I have
I've
not been, no.
Yeah, I have.
Yeah.
Years ago.
Yeah. And like I said, the Calusa is set up. The guy that was the manager there, Mike Peters, he's retired now, but he's a photographer. I ran into him several times at some different shows and so forth. And so he's got everything set up to be beneficial to photographers. So.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. Appreciate the information, and I had not known about many of the refuges or wildlife areas.
Yeah.
I've only hung out at San Luis and Merced for the most part, so
Right.
that's the closest for me.
Yeah. Well, you know, next fall, try coming up to San Joaquin River.
Okay.
Now get in contact with me. I'll let you know when the bird's in there, because usually in
Well, that's out of Los Guanos, right?
what's that?
San Joaquin River is out of Los Guanos?
It's out of Vernalis.
No, Los Banos.
Yeah.
It's right up out of Los Banos.
No, it's
Just
San
north of
Luis.
No, San Joaquin River is 132, which comes out of Modesto and goes across to Tracy, that bisects the refuge.
How
Oh,
far
okay.
from Modesto is the refuge?
10, 15 miles.
10, 15 miles. You know, I talked to somebody I've seen at Merced, usually in late February, early March for a number of years, and he travels a lot of the different refuges. He didn't care for the San Joaquin because of thefts. Is that a problem up there?
I'm sorry, because of what?
Theft of equipment from your car.
I haven't heard of a lot of theft, but it wouldn't surprise me.
Okay.
When they first put that platform up, they had this really nice spotting scope mounted on the base there.
Mm-hmm.
It lasted about 2 weeks.
Oh, yeah.
And during the summer, even though it's closed off, you have people come in there and partying and so forth. But
Okay. But it's worth a trip up there.
It is. Yeah.
Okay.
Towards the end of, towards middle to the end of December when the birds are really in there. It's like I said, I think they counted 60,000 birds in there this year.
Yeah,
And
that's quite a few.
what's nice about it is that you don't have to get up at dark 30. They usually start showing up around 7:30 in the morning. So they'll be in there, stay in the field for an hour and a half or so, and turn around and go back to their ponds.
Okay. So they're a bit more available than Merced then.
Sorry?
They're a bit more available to look at than at Merced then.
Yeah. And then also, if you're not going up the platform, Beckwith Road, which goes from east to west, I've done a lot of photography right off Beckwith Road.
If anybody is interested in Merced, they've cut all the corn down, and they have been eating a lot of the geese, the Ross's geese, and the cranes. They probably will be leaving very shortly. I'm not sure if they're still there. I'm going to go up tomorrow morning early, but they'll be gone within a short period of time. So, but right now there's still a lot of birds, and they're around where you can park along the driving route and shoot to your heart's content. So late afternoon or early morning.
Yeah. Like I say, if you'll make a jaunt up to Modoc, up to Alturas, I know it's a long drive, but you can get some nice photographs up there too.
Okay. Well, thank you. Thank you very much for the information. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
I'll have to give you a call in December and see if I can't come up to the San Joaquin River Refuge then.
Yeah, give me a call.
Okay.
And so, I mean, I took Jonathan and Patrick out one day with me. So
It was a fun tour. Thank you.
Thank you,
Doug,
Doug.
the geese come in October.
they start showing up towards the end of October, yeah.
And when are they pretty much gone?
Well, this year they had everything all fed out of the cornfield, probably by late December. And so they're not really using the cornfield anymore. They're using the areas around it. Right now you can drive down Beckwith Road and you can see some large concentrations of geese off the road. Yeah, up in the grass, out in the grass and so forth.
It's very informative. I thank you for being here tonight.
My pleasure. Thank you for asking.
If there aren't any other questions, we'll let Doug go. Thank you, Doug.
Okay.
Thanks, Doug.
My pleasure.
And I guess I'll see everybody next week.
Yeah.
All right.